All right, we're live.
All right, guys, we are live. I told you guys that I was reaching out to all my contacts in Portland to get as much information about the video that has been circulating. Um, this here is Villain from the Villain Report, and he is one of those people that I had reached out to. Um, Villain has spent a lot of time down there, right down in the mix of everything, and he's a huge asset to anybody that is interested in learning more about what's actually going down or going on the ground. So if you're not following the Villain Report, please do. Um, anyways, Villain, this is Breathe America. He hasn't been on here yet, so guys, be nice. You guys are always nice, though. So let us know, Villain, how you first of all, how did you come up with all this footage that's being shared right now?
So that video that I showed today, that was a compilation video. None of that is my footage. I just did the commentary on it, and I collected it all and put it in chronological order so that people could have the story just coherently there. There are three sources I gathered it from. They're Twitter. So two are pretty good riot journalists. There is Drew Hernandez, that is at Lives Matter Show, at Lives Matter Show on Twitter. And then there is Kalen. I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name right now, but he is at From Kalen. And then there is another guy that I follow. He follows me. He collected some stream information that he was watching. He clipped those and threw them up on Twitter. So I gathered all those and put them in order and then threw them up so that people could get a coherent story. The last person was Kitty. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting it right now. I can't do it. I'll have to shout him out on my Twitter. He's Kitty Lists. That's what it is, at Kitty Lists. So I just went through there last night and gathered it all. I actually didn't sleep last night. That video, when I saw that, I was out doing some other things, and I got informed about that around 2 hours after it happened. And the minute I started watching that, I kind of lost my mind. My blood was boiling. I started to get out there, and I was just going to run down to the Justice Center and start helping people, but then I realized it was already done and over with. But it had me going. I was up all night, couldn't sleep, kept trying to make that video all night, but every time I started to do the dialogue, I just ended up screaming and cussing, and it didn't want to come off that way. But about this morning around 8 or 10 or so, I finally was able to get it out coherently, and kind of was drained of energy at that point. So there's not the normal emotion I would have put into something like that. But yeah, that was just utterly insane to watch.
Yeah, it's a very, very horrific video. There's just no silver lining to what we witnessed in that, and there's absolutely no place for that kind of action at all. How much time? You know how far away this happened from the Justice Center?
This was right there by the Justice Center. It's so there's Lonsdale Park. That's where they had the kind of like their own chop going, and then just 1 block away to the north on 4th Avenue is the infamous 7-Eleven. So that's where his truck was parked originally, and that's where they were accosting the transgender person. The driver of the truck stepped in and tried to create some peace and get them to leave her alone. And then he got in his truck and tried to slowly drive away from the crowd and ended up crashing into a building about a block or two away. So that's the riot zone. That's where they hang out and get their snacks, and so that's not right there where the bombs are exploding, but it's basically the same area, a block or two away.
Gotcha. So, man, I don't even know where to take this conversation. You've been down there so long. How have you, are you surprised at the escalation, or is this something you believe was going to come to this point eventually?
Well, it keeps coming in waves. I talked to a bunch of people about this, and it seems like it starts picking up steam, and then it dies down, and then it picks up more steam, and then it dies down, and like every couple of days you think, okay, maybe it's over, and then like, oh, it's getting worse, and it's hard to tell. But the anger and the frustration that you see boiling through the rioters is getting more intense. They're more apt to start hurting people. On the other side of things, the right side of the spectrum and the conservative side of the spectrum are starting to come out a little bit more. You see groups like American Wolf, and I think even infamous groups like the Proud Boys have started coming out to things, and the right has been pretty silent and missing for the last couple months, and everybody's been kind of wondering about that, because usually they come out and meet together against each other. But it does seem to be boiling. I just don't know what to think, honestly.
Yeah, it's sad because, like, when I was there, and we tried to hook up when I was there, but he was actually down at another event somewhere else, so we weren't able to actually meet up. But when I was there, it became very obvious that there was a lot of different things happening all at the same time. That's one of the things I think I walked away with. But overall, I think the one thing I walked away with knowing, or from Portland, the most was that the message has been lost. Whatever it is that the protesters are hoping to accomplish, I don't think I don't think they're going to accomplish that goal at all, simply because the violence and is disrupting that goal. So, have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I have a different perspective on that. I think the ultimate goal, I think a lot of people have little movements like the communist or the Antifa light, I would call them, just kind of in there for the party, and the kind-hearted Black Lives Matter groups that are for peace, because they're all fraction and sprintered. This stuff isn't that organized in some ways, but it's kind of organic in other ways. But I think that the overall push of the movement and the people that are really trying to guide this stuff are simply seeking for chaos and anarchy, and I think that they're accomplishing that. And I do think that that's not a byproduct. I think that is actually an intent of the people that are really pushing this kind of stuff.
So it is your belief that the people that are actually escalating the violence, the rioters and the looters and those things, that their goal is anarchy, and that is what they're working towards?
Well, I'm not sure that all of those people are consciously making their decisions with a goal in mind, but there are people that are consciously trying to shape this, and I think that those people are seeking chaos and anarchy. As I think we spoke on the last time we talked, I am one of the believers this is an attempt at a communist takeover of the U.S. And several ways that the communists do things is to try to create disorder and destruction so that they can come in and in the wreckage of the government that falls before them.
It's an interesting argument. I can't even argue against it. I mean, there does seem to be things that are pointing to the fact that there is an organization to it, but at the same time, I feel like there are peaceful protesters that are literally just pawns in a game that they don't even realize they're being played in, and that's the unfortunate part. Now, as far as the incident on the tape, what caught my eye about what you put out this morning above all else is I had seen other clips, but none of them had shown anything other than the end for the most part. And you actually got some footage of what led up to it and that you were able to put together. So, and yeah, it wasn't your footage, but you were actually able to put together some of that. So let's talk about the buildup from the beginning.
Yeah, so I tried to focus on that event for that video, but there's a lot of video footage from last night of the crowd of rioters, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, just running around and attacking people and accosting people. Many people got attacked last night. And this was just the situation that kind of became the boiling point and came to a pinnacle. So that's the transgender person that was being attacked. They had their backpack stolen and their phone stolen. They were in a video very upset about the fact that they couldn't get into their home. They stole their backpack with the keys, their wallet. They were upset that they weren't going to be able to get to call their therapist that they keep in contact with. That person is a known person in the downtown area. I've run into them before, and these crowds always pick on the weakest people. That person, as they mentioned, that they needed to be in regular contact with a therapist. They had some issues they're working through, and they're just the easy target that these guys take. And then the guy that was in the truck, you can see him clearly on the video trying to keep peace. He's a very gentle presence on the videos, and he tries to get them to leave the transgender person alone, and then they attack him for that. and they attacked a woman that was trying to get them to leave him alone. Many people were attacked last night. It was kind of a night to go around causing chaos and assaulting people.
One of the things that I heard a lot in the video, towards the end of it anyways, was saying that he was trying to run over people. And literally the first thing I asked all the people that are part of Breathe America to find video of that, right? Like, I need to see that.
Yeah.
Your videos that you saw, there is a gap there between when he drove away, not trying to run over anybody, just driving away, and the accident. And I don't know what happened in those moments, but it didn't seem like he was the aggressor in any way, shape, or form. He was just trying to leave, it looked like.
Yeah. From what I gather, people were.
So I don't know. I don't know what
people were making a claim that like earlier in the evening he had been trying to run people over, but I reached out to several people that were in contact with this fellow, and it just doesn't match up anything. His presence that you saw on video, peaceful and passive and kind, that is how he is known, and nobody's got any of that video. For sure, all the streamers out there, all the people taking video, when it is something like that, when people see a car that they think is going to run over protesters, that stuff it just gets on everybody's stream. Nobody turns the camera away from that kind of thing. They want to show that. And I find it very dubious that there's not at least one piece of footage of that. But
right.
So
yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about it too. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
It is an absolute tragedy what happened to that man. For those of you guys watching, we did get a report from the Portland PD that said he is in stable condition and expected to make it, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah. They said he had non-life-threatening injuries and he's recovering on their press release.
So we're being asked if you know what caused the crash. Have you heard?
I don't know. I've heard rumors, but I can't confirm it. It's just the crowd started chasing him and coming after him. I really don't know if he just got overwhelmed or if he was trying to avoid people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Do you think this is going to get better, or do you think it's going to continue to escalate?
I think people on the right side of things are starting to show up a little bit. They're trickling in. They're not real big numbers yet, but they're starting to show up to events. And I mean, people want to think that that might even things out and neutralize things, but there's a big risk that it's going to escalate things. There was an incident in the middle of the day on Saturday down at the Justice Center where there was a Patriot rally, a couple dozen people. The Antifa, Black Lives Matter types started overwhelming them with numbers and kind of pushed them off of the steps in front of the Justice Center where they were waving flags. And then they wouldn't just let them leave either. They started chasing them around through several blocks of the city, and finally ended up in a parking garage where they parked, and they surrounded all the exits to the building. And one of the young men that was on the conservative side, on the Patriot side, however you want to describe that group of people, is on video shooting 2 shots out of a gun. It's unclear if those were blanks. Some people were claiming they were blanks. I haven't seen any evidence of the building across the street showing any signs of bullets shot there. I have yet to get a coherent, completely detailed account of that. They were coming out of the garage, and there was a tweet where an Antifa account claims responsibility for throwing a glass bottle against the car. And so if you guys have seen that video, you'll hear what sounds like 3 shots, 1 and then 1, 2. So the first one is apparently the glass bottle hitting the car. And then the second is when he sticks his hand out the window with a handgun and fires up 2 rounds. Seems like it was probably blanks, because I'm sure that if the rioters were wanting to find bullet holes in a wall, that would have been found by now and blown up on the internet. So, but I can't confirm that though. So things like that are happening. Nobody got hurt necessarily, but it amp things up. And I think that's part of why the rioters were assaulting people last night as much as they were. So it's kind of that itchy and scratchy cartoon from The Simpsons where each one pulls out a bigger gun and then a bigger gun, and they've got a gun bigger than the whole world by the end of it. So.
Well, it's funny. In an earlier show I did today, I was asked if conservatives and patriots showing up to these things would help, and I don't think that it will. I actually think that it'll actually cause more problems than anything. Randy wanted to know how recent that press release you heard was.
I think that came out about 3 o'clock. You can look at the Portland Police Bureau's Twitter, and they've got that tweeted out on their press release for Southwest. I think it was 4th and Taylor-ish. So you can read that press release on there. It's about 3. Yeah, I don't know about the right coming out because people are getting overwhelmingly frustrated with the lack of police involvement, the lack of government control of the riots, the violence, the damage, the property damage, the fear that are in a lot of citizens' minds. So yeah, on one side, like, I don't want to see an escalation because two factions start warring against each other. But on the other side, why is our country letting this chaos happen with I think it's Mike Schmidt. I think I might be wrong on that on the first name, but Schmidt is the new DA for Multnomah County, and recently he just flat out said publicly that he's not going to be prosecuting most of the riot charges. I think there's been around, I can't remember their numbers right now, over 500 to around 600 riot charges in Portland, and less than 10% of those are being prosecuted. And there's even felony assault cases or felony rioting charges that have been just dismissed. And so
would that make you think that the guy that actually kicked the guy in the head last night will not be charged?
I don't think that would ever be able to go over. I think that they'll definitely, but then again, I'm not sure how that goes in Multnomah County if the victim does not press charges. And I don't know if he has pressed charges yet, or if he wants to, or if he's going to try to keep a low profile. But I know sometimes police agencies can press charges themselves, and I think they can in Portland. I would be very, very, very shocked if they didn't pursue that crime, because so many people saw it and so many people across the country are just boiling angry about that. So I don't think that's something they could get away with not prosecuting. As far as I know, he's still out hiding. Nobody has reported to me that he's been arrested yet. I believe, here's an interesting thing. Sure. I still need to confirm this 100%, but I'm pretty sure he was the man that assaulted, he goes by Knocked Fox. I noticed his Twitter is missing today, but about a month ago, I think it was, the rioters chased them into the 7-Eleven there at that same area, and a young man came in and assaulted him, put him in a chokehold, and held him down on the ground. And I believe that was the same guy, Marquise Love.
Wow. Somebody wants to know, how do you keep yourself safe out there?
It's an ever-changing game, you know. You just have to, streaming at the riots is a very, very dangerous thing to do now if you don't 100% agree with them. And as many of you have seen that have followed these things, even the rioters that are streaming sometimes get beaten and their phones stolen. But I try to keep numbers. I try to keep self-protection with me, weapons of different sorts, you know, and I try to stay with people and let people know where I am, and just try not to do anything impulsively. And basically, you're not going to be able to completely be safe in the riots, you know?
No, having been there myself, there's streaming down there is an incredibly interesting thing, because there are those that think you absolutely should not be doing it. And there are those that get ran out of the middle of the protest. Like when I was down there, I got right down in the middle of it. I got a lot of looks for holding on to my phone. But I mean, that's the risk you take, right? Like at the same time, even though there is risk associated with it, the truth needs to be told. And that is something that Villain is 100% all about. And that is actually showing what's really happening and seeing for yourself. It's the same premise that I believe in. And I got to tell you, bro, I respect the hell out of you for it. Like, you go right down in it, and that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if it's bravery or reckless craziness.
Well, or maybe it's just simply that we don't let fear dictate our lives, you know.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen people get hurt a few times in my life, and just the thought of someone being hurt and nobody helping them just really bothers me. Like the two shots that were fired the other day. Me and my streaming my video group that I was with that day, we were closing down, getting ready to go, and then we heard the shots, so we kind of went back over there, and then it looked like nobody knew what was going on, and so I was kind of scared for somebody. Not sometimes in those situations I don't really feel like I'm scared for myself. You know, maybe I should more, but I was just scared that someone was laying up in the parking garage somewhere, just bleeding out on either side. I didn't care if it was an Antifa or one of the conservative people or not. You know, I just wanted to go see if anybody was shot and bleeding in the parking garage. So I went up there and cleared the floor by floor to make sure nobody was there. Nobody got shot. Nobody was injured, as far as I know. My chat was roasting me pretty hard because I think it was 7 flights of steps, and it winded me pretty good. So they're telling me I needed to start a cardio routine.
Yeah, it's been interesting sitting back and having spent so much time in Portland and then going in and seeing these riots for myself. Now, the night that I was there ended up being very, very peaceful. There wasn't a whole lot of escalation, but you definitely know when you're there that it could go off at any moment. There's a tension in the air that is palpable, and I tried to explain that when I was down there with everybody. And I don't know if you guys really get it, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
there's just a tension. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, that's I really love how the human mind works and how people interact with each other. And I'm kind of a wallflower nerd, and I just would more like to observe the humans in any situation I'm involved in. So when that crowd dynamic is something I find so interesting, because once you're out there for quite a little while, you can just start feeling it, and you can even like see it, and you can see how like you see the different people moving around and interacting with each other, and you can see maybe there's an agitator. It goes up to one group and to another group, or maybe not even intentional. Maybe he's just got some energy in his mind where he's angry about something that starts spreading to people. But you can just start seeing, like, I think it's going to pop off here in a minute, and you're almost always right. Once you get a feel for it, you're just like, yep, there it goes right now.
Yep. John asked, do you feel like the leaders on either side are doing anything to de-escalate or sue for peace among Americans?
I assume you mean like political leaders from like Democrat and Republican
leaders on either side. Yeah.
I think from my perspective, I think they're both just kind of doing a Cold War standoff, trying to provoke the other person to punch them, you know. But I think that the left in these big cities like Portland and Seattle and other big liberal cities are definitely, if not outright causing, they're definitely creating a situation for these things to foment. I know that a lot of people want Trump to bring in the National Guard to certain places, but I think that that's kind of what the city officials kind of want to happen in those places, so they can say like, oh, look at him, he's bringing martial law. And I think that's what's happening there. But I guess the answer to that would be no. I don't think that we have many politicians that are standing up right now and actually trying to lead out. They're trying to stalemate the other person, I guess.
I agree with you, actually. I don't think anybody's doing anything actively to bring an end to any of this. I think everybody's just playing the waiting game, you know, for whatever reasons. With the events in Portland yesterday, was that the most horrific thing you've seen down in the riots?
That was the most visceral thing I've seen. And I was thinking last night, like I ran on a bunch of rants and sent video texts to some of my friends and associates, and like I was just thinking, like, I held a dying 14-year-old boy in the back of my in my lap in CHOP in the back of a car on the way to the hospital. And watching that on Twitter last night was worse. That seeing that was like way worse. I guess maybe I didn't actually see the 14-year-old boy get shot, so I didn't see the actual violent event. But watching a peaceful man just trying to get out, trying to get away from, and you got all these raging lunatics that are just depraved, standing around him and kicking him in the head and slapping him, punching him, and he's not aggressing with them. He's not like he's the the most peaceful guy. They're picking on the most innocent people, and then that guy. What really got me was after he kicked him in the head, and he basically looks like he's dead. Somebody even says, "Oh, he's dead," in the background. He starts going around and just like Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I'm black, and saying stuff like that. Like he's just doubling down on what he just did, and there just seems to be no awareness in him that like a human life may have just been lost, you know. And the accusations of him being racist, like, oh, I was fighting. He was on. I'm not sure if this is true or somebody wrote it and took a picture of him, so I don't know. But apparently, he was on his social media apps claiming that he was just fighting back against a racist. But anybody that sees any of that video, that seems pure nonsense to me. Even just talking about this, I'm still getting just so worked up and so angry about it. Just I cannot believe that
I can hear it in your voice, brother.
To another human being that was being peaceful and just trying to help people and trying to get out of there, and he kicked him in the face at full run. That's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to deal with, man.
Yeah, that's a bad one for sure. John wants to know, why do you think that most of the protesters call for their own leader or their own left leaders to resign? Like one of the demands that that the protesters put on it in Portland was that the mayor step down, and he's a Democrat. So you got an answer to that?
Well, for one thing, the person running against him in the next election calls herself the Antifa mayor, so they want that in. But I think we talked about this on a last stream with the other guys. The one common thread that I saw through all the different groups out there and all the different people was a rebellion against just any kind of authority. So I don't, and you always hear that term, the left eats its own. The far left, they always attack their own people. It's kind of what you see. It's like one of the reasons why communism doesn't work. One of the many reasons, but once they gain any kind of power, they start attacking the people around them more and more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I didn't know that they were running against a mayor that's claiming to be the Antifa mayor. That's an interesting turn to it.
She put a press release out recently that she's I can't remember how she worded it, but she can basically condoned that political violence needs to happen sometimes, and the rioters are just in certain situations to use violence to get their way.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably not a very solid candidate, but I mean, that's crazy to me that you could actually, but I mean, that's the world we live in now, where you can actually make statements like that and still be viewed as a viable candidate for the office of mayor for a major city like Portland. And I find that inexcusable. Now, if protesters are actually calling for that because they want this other person in, then that's an interesting twist on it that I had never heard. So I honestly, bro, I don't know what I think of that. That's nuts to me.
I think it's mostly.
But I do think that change in leadership is required.
Definitely, a hopeless change for the better.
Yeah, hopefully a change for the better.
Anti-Paul leadership.
Yeah, you know, and the protesters like that I've talked to, you know, I hear it all the time that, you know, Antifa is just a term that people claim that because they believe in anti-fascism, and it's not an actual organized group. What is your opinion on that?
That's nonsense. That there may be like a gray area around those that are organized, but there are several things that you can see that are definitely organized. They wear radios. They post themselves all around the Justice Center area. They communicate with each other. They have people posted to watch who's coming in and who's coming out. They have people watching known streamers, and once those go live, they target those streamers. there's people, they have communication vehicles with people. There's people sitting in the vehicles watching all the streams and the videos and contacting people on radios. There's organization. I'm not going to say that everybody out there. There's a lot of people that just go dress up in black box because they want to be part of the movement, or they're the term useful idiots, and they have no clue about what's going on, and they hear the word anti-fascist. Well, I'm for that. I don't like fascists, so, you know.
Who does?
Yeah, who does? It's like, yeah, like you're holding a sign up like, I hate poverty. It's like, well, congratulations, like how brave you are.
Don't we all? Gina asked if they have Antifa medics.
Yeah, me and Patrick were talking about that just before the stream. They call themselves medics. They have very little understanding of anything medical, and often hurt people that they're pretending to doctor. They're often very arrogant, and they'll delay calling 911. They will stop other people from helping that may or may not have more medical knowledge than them. If you see in the video last night, the woman that was helping the person was in all black, and she had the red tape crossed on her outfit to note her as a street medic. But in the video last night, you see them horribly move that person. There was no reason to move the person at all. There was very little traffic, and they had enough people to stop any traffic that might have come their way. And not only did they move him unnecessarily, but they jerked him around, picked him up, didn't keep his spine straight. And then when they did move him and get him down, they flipped him over on his side, and it was not controlled, it was not careful, and it was unnecessary. I'm surprised that the report is that this guy has no life-threatening injuries. Everything I saw on that, there was so much potential for that guy to be either killed or very, very severely disabled for life.
The twitching that his body was doing is a pretty good indication to a pretty serious brain injury. And I don't know if he gained consciousness yet or not, and so those things are going to be determined later. But no, I gotta agree with you on the medics there. I don't think they know exactly what they're doing. I saw an early video where somebody got hit with a rubber bullet in the calf, and they were bleeding a little bit, and I watched them put a tourniquet on their leg. I just was like, what are you doing? And they were freaking out. And then, I mean, the girl putting the tourniquet on the leg, her hands were shaking.
Yeah.
She obviously did not know what she was doing. And for those of you that aren't in the medical field or haven't been a paramedic or have any first aid training, you put a tourniquet on somebody's leg, you're basically meaning that leg's getting amputated. Like, you cut off circulation to the leg, and you can cause serious problems. Okay, so don't apply a tourniquet to a scrape from a rubber bullet, please. That's not going to help the person at all.
Yeah, start like an Antifa medical training class. You could do it online. Maybe they'll pay you.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But no, if you're bleeding out like an artery and you got blood squirting out of your leg, yeah, that's time for a tourniquet. And when I say squirting, I mean like squirting. You know, then that's when it's time for a tourniquet. Just so you guys know. But I don't know much about that stuff, but I know a little. Yeah. John had another question. John with all the questions, for sure. He always does. It just says, so like militias here in Idaho, we aren't their militias and they aren't ours. We all march for the Second Amendment. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, John, but I get what you're saying. That's true. Let's see here. Creating a group like this, allowing those who want to unite to be a force and assist those who aren't. Yeah, the whole point of this group is to actually not just inform you guys, but to actually bring us together. You know, Breathe America is unique, and honestly, guys, I don't know Villain's real name. He might be a member, he might not. I have no idea who he is, but here's what I know. Breathe America is a uniquely different place where we all come together and we talk about things like this from both perspectives. We have plenty of liberals and plenty of conservatives, and we have some pretty interesting conversations. And most of the time, they're very, very productive. Sometimes they get out of hand. That's to be expected. But most of the time, you guys are really great. And that's the whole point. because if we can learn to talk to each other, we can learn to overcome situations like what Villain sees all the time down there. John says, no one large group, definitely groups flying an Antifa flag. All right, different types of militia. Gotcha. Now I know what you meant. So yeah, but your opinion is that there is an actual organized group that is Antifa, the ones with the radios, things like that. Now, when I was in Portland, would you say those are the people that show up dressed in tactical gear with all the proper helmets and all that kind of stuff?
Some yes, some no. It's there's also some people that just enjoy cosplay, and they're out there dressed up like Antifa and playing along with the game of it. But there's other things you can look at. There's certain Antifa accounts on different social media platforms that have pretty good graphic artists that make flyers for the different events that happen. They coordinate those, and people magically show up pretty quickly at different moments. Yesterday at the Trump boat parade in the Willamette in Portland, right after that, many Antifa started showing up in Black Lives Matter types. The word gets out pretty quick. A friend of mine mentioned that a lot of times you'll be watching streams across the country, and that all of a sudden one place will be starting a new chant that every once in a while they'll have their Antifa poets write themselves a chant, and that'll all of a sudden be across the country at the same time the whole night. And that doesn't sound like great evidence there, but the radios, the flyers, the organization to show up at the same time in the same place, and the organized threats to different targets, you can't deny that there's some organization going there when you really start looking at it. But yeah, a lot of it's organic, but there's definitely a core of it that organizes. They have uniforms, they have patches, they have meeting places.
Yeah. They don't communicate on regular social media stuff. They have specific apps that are encrypted that they use. I've learned all of that. But Chris has a question here, and this is just for you. So, being in the middle of all this all the time, what do you think it will really take to make it stop?
You know, I've been talking to a lot of friends about that. We're trying to brainstorm like what we can do or what we can help facilitate or organize, and we'd like to see this. And there's so many people that want it to stop. Honestly, if all the people that just wanted to stop would come out at once and tell them to stop, I believe the numbers are overwhelming. But one thing, I think that the police should just start doing mass arrests every night and let them be arrested for a couple of days. I was talking to a friend about that the other day. A lot of those rioters are shocked to find out that they're actually being booked when they're arrested. They think they're just getting a slap on the hand. They don't realize that they're actually going to get a record. But I think if they were thrown in jail for a couple of days, and then dozens of them were arrested every night, I think that would start wearing on their morale. But I don't know. I was actually, before you asked me that question, I was going to ask you that, Patrick. What do you think can be done to stop all this nonsense?
You know, ultimately, like, you know, we were just talking before this show on the last one about how, you know, it's time for the people of the United States to stand up, to stop picking sides and start picking each other. Like, people is the answer in my opinion. And the more groups like ours grow, and the more accepting we become of others, and the more people get fed up with it, and we have a louder voice. And once that voice is loud enough, then it will stop. You know, because then we take back control. You know, we often forget this is America. This is, you know, the power of the people. You know, the people could make this stop at any moment in time if we would just come together. Yeah. But we're so divided that we can't do that right now, which is what we're hoping to change.
Yeah, it's so crazy that in 20 years we went from everybody across the country waving American flags saying "United we stand, divided we fall," and now we're falling very, very divided.
Yeah, you know, every time September 11th rolls around, I always comment on posts saying I miss September 12th, especially now, and it's becoming more and more prevalent now because that's the closest I've ever seen us to being united, and it was an amazing moment. And you know, in that tragedy, we got to share this amazing moment where we came together as one nation, and that was pretty awesome.
I find a lot of people are starting to push me to and I'm open. I'm not trying to walk the dead center. I'm a little bit right of center. I'm not quite a libertarian. I'm definitely not far right. More center than libertarian, but a lot of people put pressure on me, telling me I need to choose a side. I'm like, no, I've already chosen my side. That's where the truth leads me. And
Yeah, I chose my side too. I choose the people. I choose America.
Yeah.
That's my side. I don't believe in Republicans. I don't believe in Democrats. All I see on either side are crooked politicians that are profiting off of us, and I find that to be absolutely despicable. So I'm not a fan of either. And every time I see somebody defending the R or the D on either way so adamantly, it literally hurts my head because I don't get it. I don't understand what these parties have done to earn your vote for life.
Yeah. Or to earn your vote on every different position and topic that they have on many differing things. Like I've always thought that was weird. One of the things that I have a hard time with the voting system is that we vote for. We don't vote on the different topics. We vote for people to vote on them, and they've got an opinion on a whole group of things rather than. I don't know. I would be more interested in voting for issues and not for people.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I know I do. We talked earlier. So funny. Did you watch the last show, bro?
I did. Yeah, am I parroting everything?
we were talking about how they govern based on our consent, and I don't remember giving consent for a lot of the things that they're doing. And that consent should be something that we give on issues, not just to somebody that wants to tell us that they represent us, when we can represent ourselves. And we have the technology now to do it. It is possible, but it would take a monumentous effort to rebuild that system like that. It's an amazing dream, though.
Yeah. One thing I've found recently is me and some other people have looking into how do you actually recall and reject a politician. I have a friend that knows a lot more about it than I do, but from what I've gathered, it's a very hefty task to do. Very difficult to, even if they're just completely corrupt. There's a lot of hoops, a lot of signatures, and a lot of paperwork, and it can get foiled in many, many ways very easily.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do for sure. But I don't know that we need to recall politicians. We just need to, pull them, rein them back in, and let them know that it's the people that get to decide. Randy has an interesting point. She says that she doesn't think a two-party system, or she doesn't like the two-party system, but we're kind of stuck at this point. And now we have left behavior pushes me further right than being more moderate. And that's true. And unfortunately, Randy, the two-party system has done nothing positive for us other than pit Americans against Americans. And again, I will encourage every single one of you guys watching to go and look up George Washington's farewell speech, because he speaks very, very, very passionately about the problem with a two-party system, and he begs us to avoid it. We should have listened.
Yeah.
Just my personal thoughts. Do you think all of this will cease after November?
No. I think that
no
matter what happens up until November, I think it's going to get worse in November, no matter what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're being set up for a fall either way, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, I started thinking about that. I started getting pretty pessimistic, just doomsday thinking. But I don't know if everybody just I think the far majority of Americans want peace and want things to be restored, and I think that if we actually just acted on that as a cohesive group, that everything that we're experiencing right now could be quashed pretty easily. But how do we get everybody to cooperate and work together?
That, my friend, is the $1 million question, isn't it? How do we get everybody to actually come together and have peaceful conversations without attacking each other simply because we have different points of view?
Yeah.
They have done a remarkable job of dividing us based on sides and labels that we attach to ourselves, and I find that interesting.
Yeah. And one thing that you said that you're trying to focus on is basically letting people talk and listening. And I'm trying to do that more and more. It's kind of hard because a lot of times people say things and you don't really understand what they're saying, or you want to have a back and forth. But then sometimes with a lot of people, that will just shut down the conversation real quick. And so I think sometimes if you just let them talk, they'll say more and actually give you their mind. But it also sometimes doesn't give you the chance to understand what they're saying. So
Right.
I found that interviewing people, that it's kind of a little tricky line for me to walk with some people.
So typically when I'm interviewing, not like this, like, because we know each other and stuff like that. But when I'm interviewing somebody and it's just somebody who has a drastically different point of view than mine, I don't go into it with the attempt to try to change their position. That's the first thing I do. I go in there with the intent to try to learn from them and understand why they feel the way that they do. And I think if more people had conversations like that, I think we'd come to a much better understanding of each other.
Yeah. It's kind of through the last couple months trying to learn how to interview people better and trying to make those more valuable talks. I just keep trying to learn how to scrape more and more myself away,
Yeah, it does require you to be different. It's you have to put your bias aside. And we all have it. We all have, like, and I've told everybody here before, like, my personal political views don't matter at this moment in history. They don't matter at all. If we can't talk to each other, we're all screwed. So, I'm working on developing, on teaching people how to communicate and how to come together and how to build each other up. Because ultimately, we're not going to solve these problems with more violence and more hate. We're going to solve them with love and understanding, and that's the only way we can do it.
Do you see a line for yourself to where you come to a point where you have to abandon that approach and use fight for yourself?
Yes, when violence comes to my door.
Yeah.
This is a conversation we've had. Like, a lot of people have asked me that question. They think that I don't, like, when's enough enough? I will continue to fight to bring people together and to unite this country, and one person at a time, or however I can do it, for as long as I can do it, until violence shows up at my door. And then I will handle it however I need to handle it. But ultimately, that is not what I want. I don't think that's what the majority of Americans want. But, we're also Americans, right? We have a right to protect ourselves. That is given to us by God himself. And if violence comes to my door or threatens my family or my children, then I'm going to stand up and do something about it.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have a point where you stop?
I question it lately. I've been, the whole last several months, I've been reevaluating a lot of things. Seeing all the violence and all the chaos kind of started pushing me more right. And then recently, in the last couple of weeks, I'm realizing, like, hey, I don't actually, I'm being pushed somewhere where I don't want to actually be. Like, I'm not the most strong supporter of the U.S. government in certain things. I don't like a big government, so I don't want the federal government to be overly centralized and come in and overtake the states. But in situations like this, where the states aren't taking care of citizens, I think it's reasonable. I do see that there's a lot of reform that needs to happen in the law enforcement community. I don't think that we should go target the law enforcement members as a whole indiscriminately, or attack them violently. But I have dealt with many times in my life where I've been treated as a criminal until proven innocent, so there's back to what you were saying. I'm reevaluating so many things, and I've asked myself that question a lot lately, especially when you see stuff like last night's video. It's like,
yeah,
where do we like, sure, when it comes to your door, that's an easy line to draw.
Yeah.
But that old poem, they came for this person, they came for that person, and they came for that person, and I didn't do anything. And then they came for me, nobody was there. So when we're not stopping these rioters from attacking many people like they were last night, and innocent people get hurt, that starts putting thoughts in my head to where I would like to, I think I'm entertaining these thoughts. I'm not saying I'm coming to a conclusion, but I'm thinking, like, well, maybe there does need to be a band of strong men to go out there and put some counter presence to that kind of stuff. But then I go to the other side of that thought and the itchy and scratchy idea and the inevitable escalation. And I don't know. I'm trying to say that more a lot lately too when I don't know.
You know what's interesting about you, Villain? You have some very strong political beliefs, and yet you're always looking inward, and you're looking at your own thoughts and your own way of doing things. And if I didn't know better, I'd have thought you'd been on Breathe America since day one, listening to the things we talk about. But that's a good thing, man. There's nothing wrong with looking inward, and there's nothing wrong with analyzing the situations that you see. And that poem that you just quoted is very, very accurate. And it's something I think about a lot because of where I draw that line. And I can tell you, prior to all of this, prior to me, going through some of the things that shaped me in my life, I was a very, very different person, and I would have had a very, very different answer. But for me, that's where I'm at now. I don't ever want to be violent again if I don't have to, But if it came to my children, my family, my loved ones, my friends, my neighbors, then that's what you have to do. You have to stand up, right? But avoiding violence is sometimes a lot harder because sometimes violence is just an easy answer,
Yeah. Like I mentioned a lot of times in my streams that I have a Christian background. I'm not a Christian. I have a hang up on the resurrection, but I love a lot of things about Christianity and a lot of things in the Bible that I see as wisdom. There's that verse that's blessed are the meek. And it's like this idea of that person that has the potential to just be devastatingly violent, but keeps his sword in his sheath and is very controlled.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree with that. That is the best way to be as far as I'm concerned. Just because you have it doesn't mean you need to use it, And knowing when to and when not to, it's a powerful thing, man. It's a very, very powerful thing.
Let me ask you a question. So we were talking about the video last night, and then how did you respond to that? And how did that make you feel, think, or was that a visceral event for you?
John, right now, John helps out a lot with Breathe America. Right now, his eyes are probably about as big as they get. He's probably screaming at his phone saying, "Patrick, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it."
Yeah,
I was very upset. I didn't like it. I had some strong words to say about it, and I had to take a step back. One of the things we talk about a lot is protecting your peace, right? Like, you have to know when to step back and gather yourself before you speak, right? Like, it's part of how you have productive conversations, right? And yeah, watching that video did nothing good for me at all. I was upset. I didn't like it at all. And I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know what I would have done differently if I'd have been there, if I'd have tried to stop. I don't know. The whole thing about it, even before the head kick, was wrong.
Yeah.
The head kick.
So the image of that, where they're all standing around him and he's on his knees and he's begging them to leave him alone, and he tries to get up and like gently walk away or run away at one point.
He keeps getting thrown back down. Yeah,
that looks like all the pictures you see of people in the Nazi regime or the communist takeovers, where they've got people on their knees and men are surrounding them and getting ready to execute them. And I was watching that, and it was not. I'm at a loss for words because I'm gonna start raising my voice and cussing again. I was losing my temper last night. Yeah,
I get it.
That video. I was in Portland last night. I was doing some other things, and so I didn't see those videos until about 2 hours after it happened. But while I was watching it, I started to get ready. I was going to go downtown and just start. I wanted to go downtown and start attacking these people that are attacking innocent people, and I didn't. And luckily, I saw those videos a couple hours after they happened, and I realized that had been it was already done and over. But those are the thoughts going in my head, like time to crush goals, but don't act on it though.
A lot of times that's how we react. Yeah. And those initial reactions are real. Like it's hard, right? Like, because especially when you feel like you're capable, like you might have been able to stop it or help him, I'm a big believer in helping people, and that man needed help in that moment, and nobody was there for him. And that bothers me.
He was helping other people.
Right. And when I didn't even see that till later. When I realized it, like when I saw your clip and that he was actually helping that woman who was getting beat on and kicked and spit on and also, I mean, it was horrific. And he was the guy that tried to stop it. And then next thing you know, I see him on his knees in the street taking a kick to the head like that. It definitely brings up the anger and those kind of really heavy, strong emotions that make you want to get involved. But ultimately, the best thing that we can do is have conversations like this because we weren't there. Neither of us were there. And let people know what's going on and encourage everybody to get involved. Like, Dylan makes an interesting point. If all of us that are against this stood up, then what would happen? What would happen? Would the numbers be so overwhelming that the protesters would leave? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I'm not telling you to go down and do that. I'm just saying that it's an interesting question.
I remember one of the things that whatever you think about the changing governments in India with the British Empire, when they did their walks to gain salt from the sea, and that they would just step up in rows and let the police officers beat them, and then another row of them would come up and let the police officers beat them. Their numbers, they all stood together. Like, none of us want to get beat, but just by simply showing up in numbers, they were able to overwhelm the biggest empire in the world at that time. I'm not saying we need to do that same thing, but I think that some of these peaceful protests, you only see a couple of hundred people show up at the biggest ones, and I understand people are scared that something's going to happen at those events, but if we had protests where just for peace, where thousands of people showed up just to stand there, like, we don't even need to say anything or have speeches or have anything organized, but just have a number and show up and say, just to show a visual presence that this is how many people want this to end, and we want it to end peacefully. I think that would be overwhelming.
I draw a distinct difference between peaceful protesters and rioters and looters, because I think there's a lot of, like, even when I was down in Portland that night, I think there's a lot of people that they're not down there looking for problems. They're just down there to protest peacefully. But there definitely does seem to be several different groups inside of the groups, so to speak. So I understand what you're saying.
Well, I was thinking about something like in the middle of the day somewhere else, just so that those.
Oh no, yeah,
yeah. A hard thing I have about even the people that are peaceful at night there, like, okay, if this is a peaceful protest, why is it at night?
Well, they're trying to get recognized, I suppose. I like what you said there about not doing it down there in their face confrontation style, because ultimately I think that's gonna make things a whole lot worse. But if people were to start standing up, and speaking out like we're doing, I think that goes a long way. I don't know how big your platform is or how big, none of that, like, but we're reaching people, we're talking to people, people are starting to learn different ways and understand things, and ultimately, if we can get people to understand each other, I think we're going to see a very, very different result.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer that sometimes it's better, the social media thing, to where people get a big platform and then certain people have a lot of reach. I don't know if that's actually true, because I think that we really only, in some ways, we really only affect the people that are actually in our lives. And so you might, or I might, talk to a couple thousand people that listen to a certain thing you say, but sometimes it's more powerful like maybe one or two people that know you are intimately involved in your life, and you show an action or say something that you believe, and that affects them. That might create a bigger event overall, as that chain reaction goes through all the people that are actually connected in their real lives. I know you think like, oh, this person has 50 million people on their YouTube or whatever, and they might talk to all those people. They might actually get their ear, but they don't really know them. They're not actually connected to them in a human way. And so,
sure,
I guess it's that pay it forward thing. Like, when you actually physically and intimately interact with someone with kindness and love, sometimes that'll create an avalanche.
I agree with you. And ultimately, you know, that's we talk about that a lot, man. We're going to get a lot further with love and kindness and building each other up and trying to speak to each other in a way that we're not even used to doing anymore. You know, and that's the amazing thing. We just hit the hour mark, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Go ahead and wrap up. Any closing thoughts you have for everybody watching?
No, that's I'm. If anybody has a question or if you have a question, but I'm good too. My phone's about to die.
Sweet. I just like to thank you, man. Not just for coming on here, but for what you do. You shine a lot of light on a lot of these subjects and a lot of these events, and we're gonna keep talking. And I don't know what we're gonna do moving forward, guys. There's a lot coming up here soon, and maybe Dylan and I will get on here again at some point. But I want to thank you, brother, for being on here, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight and listening to a second show tonight. But I didn't want to miss the chance to talk with Dylan about it since it was his video, and he's got more knowledge, firsthand knowledge of being down there than anybody I know. So you guys have an amazing night, and remember, be better tomorrow than you were today. And I love you guys. See you later.
All right, bye guys.
And we're out of here in just a second.